righty.
Yeah, so before we get into the show, I do have a question in a few of my leagues, and then uh, I guess on the show, we'll talk about the draft night out. But this is outside that. Just want your opinion. Brees Hall may play. I don't know if you've heard that.
Yes.
So my issue is I've got Davis, right? Is that his name? Isaiah.
Isaiah Davis. Yep.
Yeah. So now I'm thinking, is it going to be a three-headed deal? Does everybody lose, or is it going to be Brees Hall and then, scraps for the other ones? In other words, I've got to make a decision on a couple of leagues. I've got Hall on the bench. Should I pull him out and then put Davis on the shelf? So I'm juggling that, and I'll probably be juggling up to kickoff. And and I don't know how many points I'm talking because I think Davis could maybe be the goal line person or something. I don't know with an instant three-headed deal, what am I going to get? And given all, the Jets and everything that's kind of, with Rodgers, I feel like I don't know exactly what the hell he's going to do. So I feel like that's a really uncertain situation for me. And I don't know if you've got Davis or Brees Hall, but that's something to consider is everybody going to lose touches? What you think?
Yeah, this is a very tough thing to handicap because you have to look at it in a couple of different ways.
Okay.
Okay. You have
Yep.
to look at it. First of all, I think all three will be active.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
And
I,
that's,
I agree with that.
but that's always the danger when you have three guys like this that
Yes.
don't really transfer over to special teams very well.
Yep.
Um, will all three be active? And most of the season, the answer was no.
Yeah.
Most of the season, Isaiah Davis was the odd man out. But since their bye week in week 12,
Yeah.
he has become a very important part of that offense. He had a good solid day even when Brees Hall played in week 13.
That's right. I remember that.
So he had a couple of receptions, three receptions for 28 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah.
So he only saw 18% of the offensive snaps that day, but he was very active running routes. And so there's two scenarios you have to, once you decide, yes, do you think all three are going to be active? And I think the answer is yes. I think the concern over Brees Hall playing a full game is enough that they will not endanger that position by saying, okay, we're going to bring in a fourth, a different running back and sit Isaiah Davis. They worked just fine last week without using Hall, and they basically had the two guys active, and that's all they did. So I think they are all three active. So that's the first question. Now, the second scenario you have to think of is okay, does Brees Hall play his full complement of snaps? Or do they go a little lighter with Brees Hall, but still have him in there? And I think the answer is they go lighter on the snap count for Brees Hall. So then the question is, does Isaiah Davis or Braylon Allen get more of the attention? Now, ironically, both of them are very good in the passing game. Even though Braylon Allen is a much bigger guy, he's still pretty decent in the passing game. And both of them, more importantly, are very good in pass protection when they fear a blitz and they've got to bring the extra, keep him in to block. You're like, well, that doesn't score me fantasy football points. No, but it keeps the guy on the field. So if they don't blitz, if they just show the blitz and back off, now all of a sudden he can either chip and go out or just run a route. So, but being competent in pass protection is important to being on the field. And I don't think either Isaiah Davis or Braylon Allen has the stronger advantage there. So I expect a three-way split,
Yeah.
but I expect Davis maybe to get a few more looks in the passing game because if you're going to rest Brees Hall, like if I was using Brees Hall, I'd want him on the field mainly when I'm running a play to him. And the rest of the time, I'm resting him. So in that case, I probably don't want him on third down plays. I don't want to get him beat up for no good reason. I want to lead with this guy on first down and regularly when I've got all my options for plays open. So I really do think this will be a split, and I think Isaiah Davis proved last week that he might even be a little bit better than Braylon Allen, except for, a few maybe short yardage. You're going to want Braylon Allen right between the guards or something, right up the middle. But otherwise, I think Davis really impressed people. So I wouldn't be afraid to play Isaiah Davis. He's probably not going to get any more than about 30% of the snaps, but he could see three or four catches again out of the backfield. And, that's the big question. The thing is, though, you're going up against Jacksonville, and on paper, they don't look like they're going to be tough against the run, but that's actually been where they've been a little bit better here in the last few weeks. So I
I
would
figure
say,
we're going to talk about that game more since
yeah,
it's a squirrely game.
it is a
But
squirrel. So, and that's the
I didn't. I'm deliberately not kind of counterpointing on some of the points you did. I just wanted to hear, what you're saying. That will inspire my thinking when we talk about it a little more. But uh, anyway, that was the thing that I thought it was Davis all the way. Then all of a sudden, Brees Hall's playing. So I'm having to adjust on the fly last couple days on that. So I went ahead and put Brees Hall in, Davis out, just as a reflex. And a lot of times, and so this may be, I don't know if people do this, but a lot of times when I hear something like this, I'll go ahead and do the move, yet know that I need to come back and think about it. But I didn't want to forget about it. I didn't want not to acknowledge Brees Hall has been doing really well. So I deliberately moved him into the flex, Davis out. I mean, that's where both of them were at anyway. I have, some, Henry and Connor and Mix, these kind of things, because we drafted so well by our data, our 6-1 data. So a lot of my teams are, we talk about the draft out team, running
oh
back
boy,
heavy.
yeah,
And
yeah.
with Godwin, I've taken that loss as well. And so I'm fortunate that in week 15 to get Henry back and whatnot. But anyway, so that's a trick I do. If something like this occurs, I'll go ahead and put the obvious quote stud in there and take the backup out just as a starting point, because I the starting point was having Davis in because I thought Hall was out.
Yes.
But now he could, not worrying about the snap count, not worrying about are they going to, any of that. I just want to do a knee jerk first. In other words, I want to look at the whole team in that way and then do the adjustments later. And of course, if somebody's new to fantasy, a year or two, the downside of that is, do you get scared to flip it back? In other words, you've got to have some skills and some history and kind of how good you can be when you really hit it, that you can be brave enough to sit Brees Hall if that's your decision. And, sometimes I think people get scared. Debo Samuel, boy, he's good, but, that kind of, so but if you already had him in there early in the week, oh, I know Samuel's going to bounce back, so let me just load him. Then all of a sudden, as the game gets closer and it's going to rain, and you're thinking, but I'm scared, and in other words, you let fear drive those last minute picks, and it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be
No,
emotional. It should be, floor ceiling. You gonna get, is he gonna hurt you? Kind of your best scoring. What level are they gonna be at? Kind of thing. More of a analytical, not letting fear scare you. And look, I still work on that too. I'm not saying I'm immune. Look, we're all human, and we have the fight or flight, right? So those are some things that I'm thinking of in the playoffs. Is That's a trick that I do because I know what I'm doing on that. So I know I've done that on purpose. So not that I was scared or not scared, I just wanted to do that and then let the decisions, fall, looking at the Vegas, the DAPs, and looking at the analyticals a little bit, and then make a decision closer to time. So tonight and tomorrow morning I'll be, flipping in those last minute things, and I just don't want to be moving by fear or I'm scared. I want to try to use as much analytical as possible. I mean, that's the science of fantasy football, right? Is we're letting the stats kind of guide us, not having an opinion and trying to, oh, okay, that stat says I'm good. You know, we don't want to do anti-science, is what I'm, I guess, trying to say. I sure said a lot there, Dennis. I'll
yeah,
stop.
and I actually agree with that whole philosophy because, you know, we tend to play in fear when there's more on the line.
Yes. And
Week
this is that
one,
week. Yes.
week one, we're just
Shooting from
fine.
the hip. Yeah.
We got our guys out there. We drafted them, and by golly, we're
We're
playing
going to
them, and
play
we
them.
feel
Yeah.
good with them. But we've got a whole, 14 weeks of history now, and we've gotten burned on at least one occasion. So here's my methodology in fantasy football for good or bad. I really do believe in my MVP index. Okay. Because it grades a player based on how he did every week. And if I've got a player like Brees Hall, who's MVP over the last 2 years plus, okay, so 2 years plus this season, weighted for this season, it's 108.6 right now.
That's an RB1.
That's an RB1. He's number 11 when it comes to best MVP right now. And then you factor in all of the factors. Okay. So I factor in what I used to call the Big Ten score, which is the best games, an average of the best, third of his games, full games played. And I factor in his best index, which is a statistical tool that only looks at the positive sides of fantasy football. Then I compare that to the MVP just for this season. So just for this season, he's a 91.7. So he's lower
Yeah.
for
Now
this
you're getting to
season.
high RB2.
Correct. So that's actually based on this year, believe it or not, it is exactly a high RB2. It's
Yep.
14th best in the league right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But here's the kicker.
Yeah.
Who's going to be better than that? And I don't even care about defensive matchups when I'm making this decision, but he's going up against a defense that just gave up over 100 yards to Tony Pollard.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at this and saying, I feel pretty good about what's going on here with Brees Hall. If he's healthy, he's going to be in my lineup because I'm not going to go against the RB11 in all of fantasy football right now. He's at least in one of my flex plays, okay? because I've already had to make those decisions. But the way I do my lineups every week is a little bit different, Professor. So when I'm setting my lineups on Tuesday morning for the upcoming week, I don't look at the schedule. I don't look who's playing Thursday night versus early Saturday or Sunday or whatever. I just look at, okay, if I'm setting these lineups and all these players were playing at the exact same time on Sunday, who are my top guys? And that's how I set my lineup. So I put my top running backs in, my top wide receivers, my top tight end, my top quarterback. Then I go back and decide on super flex. Am I going a second quarterback or is there another option? Then I go into my flex positions, and some of my leagues have as many as 5 flex position starters. So I fill those all out. And then whoever's left out at that point, I then look and say, okay, does this guy make sense over anybody else? No. Okay, my lineup is set. Then I'll go back in Thursday morning and I'll move my Thursday guys from the flex to a starter position. And I'll move my early Sunday guys into a starter position. But I set my lineup the first time based on just hierarchy. Who's my RB1? Who's my RB2? Who's my WR1? Who's my WR2? Who's my starting tight end? Who's my starting quarterback? Boom. Now I got my leftovers to figure out my flex positions. And that way, you're making all of the decisions the same way every week. You're not starting out with guys in the lineup. They have to earn their way into the lineup every week. And by doing that, I force myself to make a decision, not just based on defensive matchups. I don't even really look at the defensive matchups until I'm looking at players that have less than a 90 MVP index. And the reason is a guy who's got it over 100 MVP index has done it against good defenses and bad. He has to have, because 100 means you're doing it every week. Your number of bad weeks are very, very few. Once we start getting below 90, now you got your home away split guys at quarterback like Jared Goff. He's a 74.5 right now on his MVP, but better this year, 92.3. So remember, we said at the beginning of the year, he would be better because he had fewer outdoor games on the road.
Yep.
He's been a little bit better this year. So, that's the kind of thing that I look at, though. And I don't try, if a guy has earned stud status, if he's over 100 on MVP, he's in my starting lineup. Now, I've got a really good problem if I've got a guy over 100 that's not in my lineup yet,
Yeah.
But that rarely happens in the type of fantasy football that I play. But even in 2 flex leagues, like we play in FPPC, it's very rare that I leave 100 MVP on the bench. Usually once I've set the lineup, I've got all guys that are, all of my 100 MVP guys are in the lineup. And then I'm I've got maybe somebody in the 90s or somebody in the 80s that I'm filling out that last position with.
Yep. I like it.
So I like to rely on that data first and foremost. Now, if I've got a player that's a little dinged up, then I have to factor that in. But it's very rare that the RB11 isn't going to be at least one of my 2 flex plays.
Nice.
Now, with a case like Breece Hall, though, where let's say I want an insurance package. Let's say I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm tossed up on this last flex to put in. Got Breece Hall in the lineup as one of my top 2 running backs.
Yeah.
But my last flex play, I'm a little uncertain. None of the guys that I could put in there are really wowing me. Yeah, they'll be okay. They'll get a good game. But what if What if Brees Hall comes out and I've got Isaiah Davis on my lineup? Why not put him in my last flex? Play them both strategy. Now, if
Play,
one gets
play,
yanked out,
play them both.
play them both. And I'm protected. And here's the thing, Professor. If I had done that last week, let's say that last week I wasn't sure which of the running backs was going to take over and be the dominant back against Brees Hall. Say I put them both in my flex. I end up with 27 points between the two players.
Yeah.
That's more than twice historic median. Historic median being between 12 and 13. So I've gotten above the historic median out of those two flex positions. If I can get over historic median for my flex positions, I'm having a good week. So
nice.
that's how I play sometimes when I have a situation like Brees Hall where you're a little uncertain and I got them both on my roster. Play them both.
Play them both. I
Because
like
week 13, last time Brees Hall played, if you played both Davis and Hall, you would have gotten 18 points. Not great, but sure is better than getting just 6 for Brees Hall. So if you need to hedge your bets, you feel like hedging your bets, maybe playing both is the way to go. It all depends on the rest of your roster, of course.
Yeah. I like it. Okay. I say let's start the show. That was a good, we covered that question like I wanted to.
Very good. Very good. All right, Professor, here we go. How you doing, everybody? This is Dennis Michelson. Welcome to the Science of Fantasy Football. Why the Science of Fantasy Football? Get a meteorologist and a biologist together. They're going to use the scientific method that is guaranteed to make you a better fantasy football player. How can I give any guarantees in fantasy football where Cooper Kupp can't even give a guarantee to his fantasy football owners? Well, using the scientific method just means we're going to use data. We're going to use statistics in a smarter way. And if you do that, you are going to have a higher winning percentage in fantasy football because it is a numbers driven game. And joining me as he does each and every week, he is the fantasy professor. He's a real professor. It's John Bush. And John, Thursday night went back to being Thursday night.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm some leagues I'm in a hole. Some leagues I avoided the landmine. So it was, as I look back, you can, I guess I've got a hangover. It's like, well, now why did I play, Debo? Why, some leagues I set him, others I didn't. So I feel, I don't flip the script and say, oh, I was really good. I punish myself, for the bad decisions and kind of don't reward myself for the good. But that's just my personality, and I know that. But I played Stafford in a few, Purdy in a few. Fortunately, I had better options in a lot of the other leagues I got in the playoffs. Darnold and Love and Mahomes, and so I was saved. But some I'd been using, Stafford and Purdy, and I didn't have much choice. I wasn't going to go to some of the, Bryce Youngs or some of the, my second or third tier quarterbacks. So I was in a bind in some. But if you can beat up on yourself too much, and that's fine as long as you don't make it hang over till Sunday morning and you're still, purge the system, right? So I don't know what you need to do, but whatever your strategy is go ahead and, get that done. Thursday's done. How can you now survive, maybe the bad? I mean, was it a bad decision or was it a good decision with a bad outcome? And, sometimes we don't take enough time to consider that concept, Dennis.
Yes, that's an accurate way to put it. So here was my thought process on Deebo Samuel before the game, and we didn't have a show on Wednesday because I was down in Indy for an auto racing seminar that I host every year. But I would have said the exact same thing that I'm saying right now. So don't go ahead and say, oh, it's easy postcasting it. No. So Deebo Samuel is 31st this week on my consensus weekly value tools chart. So that means he's not an automatic start, folks. He's not a WR1 or WR2 this season. His MVP over the last 2+ years is only 81.1. For this year alone, it's only 25.
Oh my,
Horrible.
That's a 4 or 5.
It's outside the top 40 right now. It's
Yeah.
44th in the league. So he's not an automatic start, is what I'm saying. But I made a post on Thursday morning about him, and I said, this is the kind of game where he's either going to get 5 points or he's going to get 20. And I had somebody ask, oh, so your range is 5 to 20. No, you misunderstand. He's either going to have a horrible game at 5 or he's going to have a game like 20 plus. There is no in between for Deebo Samuel right now. So he got 7 targets and 2 carries. That's 9 different times he got a chance at the ball. So he had more than enough volume to produce, but he just didn't get any yards. He
had a catch that probably would have gone for a touchdown.
Yes.
You had that opportunity.
Yes. So, of course, if he has that one extra catch, that's worth.
Then you probably got closer to the ceiling.
That's 12 more points on that one play. So that would be almost a 17-point game.
Yep.
And then we're not having this discussion.
Nope.
So you knew what you had in Deebo Samuel. I had a couple of mostly just dynasty leagues where I had him because I don't have him much in traditional redraft. Very few shares in redraft because he's just too inconsistent. I've got more of him in best ball. He's a guy I like more in best ball because of those spike games than in redraft. Just like for years, it was, Lockett from Seattle was another guy that I loved having in there. Even Gabe Davis was a guy that I didn't mind having as a later pick in best ball. Now you can't get Deebo as cheap as you get those other two, but he's still at his price tag. He wasn't bad in best ball. He's always been very inconsistent as far as that goes. For a guy that has had a traditionally high MVP, he's had too many weak games, but he has those big explosion games. This year, he's not having the big explosion games. That is the big difference. But he's 31st in my rankings. I guess that means my rankings, and that was before this week's debacle. So he'll probably drop a couple more spots. So the moral of the story is we know what Deebo is. He was overdrafted as the 10th wide receiver. That's why he's not on a lot of my teams. He was overdrafted. He was drafted way too early. And that was because he finished the season strong last year. And he had some games that people remembered because they're highlight reel games. But that's not who he is each week. We know that based on his MVP index. He rated out, I had him about my 18th wide receiver. So I was even wrong because he's now 31st. But this is a case where you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be better than consensus because I had him 18th versus 10th. He's not on many of my rosters. So I don't have that problem to worry about. But Professor, I did a little film study.
Yeah.
Should I Should I
Yeah.
share my film study with everybody?
As long as it's, you know, not bad film that you're watching.
No, this is NFL. This is the
Oh,
NFL replay. So what I
okay.
did, okay. So I found this computer program I was
Mhm.
given at this auto racing seminar, because what they do is they want to see how the car's handling in the corners, and it's an ingenious uh, system that they developed, because it fills in the pixel rate and does. I don't understand how it technically works, but it's like having a super slow-mo camera where they're, on a replay, so you can see how the weight is shifting in the corners for the car.
Yeah.
So I decided, well, let me have some fun. Let me apply this to the Thursday night game. And
Yeah.
Professor, I was shocked what I saw.
Yeah. What'd you see?
When you slow down the rate, there were these little drones
Yeah.
that kept popping out of nowhere
Yeah.
and deflecting the ball away from Cooper Kupp. And that's why Cooper Kupp had a 0-point thing. I
Yeah.
think it was drones. The drones on the East Coast that came to Thursday Night Football, Professor. It was on this. But then I lost the video,
Yeah.
so I couldn't share it.
Yeah. That's too bad. You should have
It was
shared it.
drones, Professor. It was
The
drones. It was
drones. Yeah. Let's
drones
shoot
that
them down. Yeah.
we should shoot them down, because
Yeah.
I can't deal with a Cooper Kupp 0
Yeah.
points on our Dino team.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
was
those
sad.
drones, they're not coming out here in the country where I live because that's skeet
Oh,
shooting.
that
The
would be
the
skeet.
hillbillies would love it. They got enough firepower down here, you know, because they got to guard their, moonshine stills. They would just love target practice of some kind of foreign, them they'd be going nuts. It'd be like a 4th of July out here. They would love it. Those drones end up where they know they don't need to be, but they know that they're safe. They're not going to fly up here in Arkansas because the wooey, pig suey folks here, they'd be blasting them. They'd be like, "Can I eat this thing?" They'd be you know, trying to see what was all about. So they would love it. And so I don't have to worry about drones because I got neighbors that shoot them out of the sky.
They probably turn all those exotic metals into like a better coil for
Oh
the
yeah,
still, wouldn't
yeah.
they?
You got to have the correct formation of your thumper in your distilling of your spirits, Dennis. I watch
Oh
moonshiners
yeah.
on the TV, and I've learned a lot about fermentation. And this is flashbacks to inorganic chemistry that is like, our homework. The professor would give you X amount of this material, and you have to turn it into this compound Y, and you couldn't lose but a certain amount
Oh yeah. Yep,
per
yep,
each step. And
yep.
so you would get points taken off. So if you started with 100% of X and you only got 50% of Y in the process, that's an F. So I had flashbacks here, and that's probably why I don't do moonshining, because I'd probably, not be very efficient here. Because I'd probably want to taste test and get some. I'd be blind from all the alcohol. So wine, on the other hand, I used to do that for my uh, microbiology class, Dennis. We would do fermentation. I'd have a big jug of grape juice, and we'd put the yeast in, and we'd have it. You take a little stopper and a little glass uh, a tube, and you put it under water so that it doesn't backflow. The bacteria don't get in, and so we let it go the whole semester. Then we'd have a taste test, and all the students, I'd give them a little. Basically, one of these sample urine cups. These were not used though, but you could get them real cheap. But so I had some wise guys that would bring me a 7-Eleven big Slurpee, 64 ounce, wanting to sample. The whole point for take a swallow of the wine, not like a big 7-Eleven. And I've put it in the cold room, and all of a sudden, by next semester, that wine was gone. So all the little elves and graduate students would go in there. I don't know what kind of parties they would have, but I didn't want to be, you know, I was, I don't know what was going on. I put the wine up so we could taste it next year, and it was gone. I had to make some more. So anyway, drones, deflecting balls, we don't have to worry about that down here in Arkansas.
Now that's why those Southern games will be just fine.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but those East Coast games, those West Coast games,
I mean, we're still
Or-
mad about Alabama not getting in this playoffs now. We getting stirred up down here. I don't know. Them Yankees, they're tricking us down here, keeping our Alabama team out. So we're all stirred about. We're going to have to talk to Alabama. They just not going to play anybody next year. They not going to have this again.
yeah, certainly don't want to play Weber State or Furman. They could,
No, we're
could
going to
be
find some
could
high
be
school
dangerous.
teams.
Could
This
be
is not going to happen
dangerous.
again. Them
Yeah.
Yankees not going to steal our chances next year. We're going to play some high school games.
See, I thought down in Louisiana and Arkansas they'd be excited about anything that made Alabama look
Well,
bad.
but Dennis, what's this? All these Yankee teams up there, we getting stirred. We kind of wake up from our moonshine deliriums. Like, hold it now. Where's the SCT? EC teams at? Come on. What is all these different ACC and all this other stuff? What is this? We're not
There's
used to
only
this.
there's only one God's conference. I thought they expanded the playoff to 12
They should
so
have just
they
put
so
all
they
the
could get so
SCC
they could
teams in there. That
yeah,
should have been the playoffs.
that's the real championship. I'm
Yeah.
telling you.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
So they shouldn't have invited guys like Texas to join the
Yeah,
Southeast Conference.
those Texans, we
Their
don't.
their geography department's screwed up too. So
Yeah, we don't know what they are down there. They're suspicious.
then again, I came from a school that you know we're part of a conference that apparently can't count because we've got 18 teams and we call it the Big Ten. So
There you go. See,
try to
y'all not tricking us. Yeah.
try to figure it out. But anyway, drones.
Drones. Okay.
Drones. That's
Got
what
it.
caused
That explains Brock Purdy. He wasn't doing what he needed to do.
explains the entire game. But apparently apparently these aliens who are flying these drones, because I guarantee it's aliens.
Mhm.
That's it's got to be aliens flying these drones. They must like place kickers. So maybe
Yeah.
they're little guys that can relate to the little place kickers because
Yeah.
they
Man.
left the field goals alone.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad Puka came in for us, and Gorindo didn't hurt you that bad.
yeah.
You got some points.
Did you hear how FanDuel screwed up for Thursday night?
No, I don't.
Oh, so FanDuel posted bad odds that they said they inflated the odds and they blew it, but they didn't void out any of those bets because it was their mistake.
Well,
So they were giving like much higher odds for all of these touchdown duos. And because it was a 48-point over under on Thursday night, people saw those mistakes and they were talking about them, I guess, online. And they just like a lot of bets on these anytime touchdown plays that were inflated odds. And then after no touchdowns were scored, people actually had the audacity to be bitching that they should have been all voided out because no touchdowns were scored.
Yeah.
How weak are we getting?
We're weak.
That's like you bet on the 3 to 5 shot at the horse race track and the jockey falls off. I
Yeah,
want to
well,
get
avoid
I
them.
want my money back.
Yeah, I want my money back. Yeah,
That
I
ain't
like
how it
that.
works. That ain't how it works. But
Yeah.
but yeah, it was people are getting to the point where they expect every bet that is a loser to be voided out.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be the way to do it, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I'm going to
Make
talk
a
to
hell of a lot of
casinos.
money.
I'm going to go over to Oakland and tell them that. I
I
bet
think
you they will receive that well. They'll
yeah,
probably comp me a room for having that good opinion.
the room will be
Dennis,
at
I
the
will be
local.
ruled off the track, so
Yeah,
I know better.
they would be bringing the guys with the white suits and those little
Yeah,
little
tasers and shit.
yeah,
They'd be shocking my butt out the door.
they'd be putting you in that wonderful wraparound jacket and
Yeah,
taking you away to the funny farm
they
because
sure
with an
would.
attitude
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
All right, Professor. So instead of a gripe of the week,
yeah.
I have,
Okay,
are you
what you got?
ready?
Yeah.
I got the first commandment of
Uh,
fantasy football playoffs.
oh. Okay.
Stay the course. Don't get cute during the fantasy football playoffs. So if you, for instance,
Yeah.
have had two quarterbacks all season long
Yeah.
that you're playing the best matchup
Yep.
between them,
Yep.
and you're like, well, I don't know, it's been working alternating between Jordan Love and Baker Mayfield all year.
Yeah.
But Bryce Young has been doing great. He's got a great defensive matchup this week. So I'm going to grab him off the waivers
Yep.
and put him in my starting lineup. Don't do it. Stay the course. My God, if the guys have been good for you all season, don't get cute with your play in the playoffs. Like, go to bat with these guys. Do not get cute and try to screw around by adding somebody. Now, obviously, if your regulars are beat up and they're not playing, you got to make a pivot. But otherwise, don't get cute. Oh, I'm worried so and so has a tough defensive matchup. Yeah, and he's also got an MVP index of 100 plus, which means he's performed well against tough defenses. Stay the course and play guys that got you to the dance. Like,
so
dance
Dennis,
with who brung you.
to put that point home, who are the quarterbacks with 100 plus right now? Do you
So,
have that data available?
so yes. So
Good.
and way I would look at this
Okay.
is 100 MVP for this year
Mhm.
and for the last 2 years
So
plus.
so give us those quarterbacks so we're not
Number
yeah.
one, Joe
Yeah.
Burrow,
Yeah.
110 over the longer run.
Yeah.
This year alone, 130.8.
Oh, I like that. I'm playing him.
Lamar Jackson, 100 for the big picture, 138.5
Okay.
for this season alone.
Nice.
Josh Allen, 128.3 over the last 2+ years, 115.4 this year.
Nice.
Jalen Hurts, and I've been seeing people, I don't know
Nope,
if I
I'm
can trust
playing him.
Jalen
I
Hurts.
have him as an opportunity. I've got Hurts versus Love. I'm playing Hurts again. I may get Hurts, but I'm going to play him.
122.7, 100 this season.
Yep, playing him.
The other guys become a little bit more that you have to look at. But how about Jaden Daniels? 108.3. I am playing Jaden Daniels.
Okay.
So Tua, only at 89.5 for the big picture, 100 though for this season.
So Tua's in play.
I'm playing him. Mahomes, 104.3 for the big picture, 76.9
Boy,
for this year.
That's the first one that's really broad in the floor ceiling.
I'd be worried about him.
Yeah.
So Baker Mayfield, 123.1 for this year alone.
Yep.
The bigger picture, 56.1.
There's another one.
So those are the guys that once you have an MVP index that is either based on a small sample size like Jameis Winston, or if it's above 100 or pretty high, like I'm going for it. I'm playing those guys no matter what. But Mahomes is the one exception. Plus, he's playing in the rain on Sunday in Cleveland. So I don't have any problem with you getting off of Mahomes, but you get off of Mahomes for somebody who's better. Get off of Mahomes. So here's Sam Darnold, 92.3 for this season, 80 for the bigger picture. Okay. Those guys, Mayfield, Darnold, if I've got a good offensive or defensive matchup to exploit, I'm taking them. Jordan Love, 100 for the big picture, 81.8 this year. I want to have a defensive matchup in my favor to absolutely start Jordan Love. How about this one from Thursday night? Brock Purdy, 88.2 for the big picture, 75 for this year. He was vulnerable. And Stafford, 47.2 for the big picture, 38.5 this year. He was vulnerable. But even guys that, you drafted as a must start. How about CJ Stroud, 61.5 for the big picture? This year alone, 38.5. Those guys, I'm going to demand that they've got a strong defense. So when I say stick with your guys, I'm only saying stick with your guys that are proven. And there aren't that many of them. Okay.
Gotcha.
But over the long haul, if I've got a 90 or higher for MVP for the big picture plus this year, they are an automatic start for me this week, unless I've got another guy who fits that bill. That is, say I have two great quarterbacks. I have some one quarterback leagues that are dynasty leagues where I've got two great quarterbacks. I've got a Hurts and a Burrow. Who do I start? Then you have to decide based on defensive matchups. Probably leaning Burrow because that Cincinnati defense has been so awful. They're going to have to score a lot of points. But that's how you use data. Don't go ahead and say, oh, man, I'm worried about this defense that, one of these stud quarterbacks has. And you say, well, I'm going to start a Bo Nix this week. Okay, Bo Nix has been fine. He's got a 61.5 rating MVP. That's not bulletproof, folks. 90 and higher, that's where I say, okay, I'm relying on this guy. Under, the lower you go from 90, the more I get worried. Gotcha. And that goes for every position in fantasy football.
Nice.
No matter running back, wide receiver, whatever. I look at those figures and I want guys who are bulletproof. Obviously, at tight end, the numbers are a little bit lower.
Oh, yeah.
But, even at tight end, we got some guys this year. I mean, this year alone, Kittle at 127 on MVP.
I had to play him. I wasn't going to sit him Thursday night.
You got over 10 points on him, so you're fine.
Yeah.
You're not going to sit.
Yeah, but I'm greedy, Dennis.
Your studs.
I'm greedy.
We're all greedy. We're all greedy.
I want a lot of 20 points. I want the 20.
I saw a lot of people complaining about, oh man, I started Garendo. I'm screwed. No, you're not. He got you double digits. Shut up and sit down.
Yeah. No, I played him as well. So
Cooper Kupp got you nothing.
Yeah.
How about a big game out of Puka without a touchdown? That was impressive.
That helped.
But that's my guidance to you folks.
Nice.
Use the data wisely. If you've got guys that have proven themselves week after week after week, they did it against tough defenses. just as much as they did it against easy defenses.
Yeah.
Yeah, against an easy defense, they might have blown up for 35. Against that tough defense, they only got you 17.
So, uh, do we have players above the 100? I guess if we back looked, would we see how would they compare versus say 80 to 100 versus 60 to 80? In other words, if you put them into buckets, looked at their good and bad, uh, game, defense against position situations, is there more variation, higher or lower? That sounds like something I need to investigate a little bit. In other words, do we have players above 100 that they have low variation anyway? They're just that good versus, the below 100 to 80, there's more. And then below 80, there's even more still. When I'm describing it in terms of variation between the good and bad matchups, I would like to see that data, Dennis. I think
So,
that's a good research question.
yes, and I am laying that out. By the way, what I'm doing is I'm taking the performances of every player,
Yeah.
okay, and I'm going to color code the MVP index,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm also going to color code the defense against position.
Yeah.
And the idea is to see exactly what the variability was. But let's take a look at a random player. I've just popped onto the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah.
102.5 for Kamara. Very
Yeah.
solid,
Yes.
always been good. 123.1 this year. So he's actually been better this year
Yeah.
with all the calamity
And
than
I'm not
he's
sure
been.
people realize that.
No, because he's not really having, he's had that 144, that one big game that he blew up for. And
Yeah.
he's had a couple of games in the 20s, but he's just consistent as can be. So in his case, so right now, over the last 2 years plus this season, so dating back, 22, 23, and 24 seasons,
Yeah.
that's a total of 40 full games played. And a full game for a running back is 40% or more of the snaps.
Yeah.
Okay, so that bar is set pretty low.
Yes.
He has been over 10 points 31 times. He's been over 20 points 10 times. So 25% of the time he's been over 20 points over that last 2+ years. You know how many bad games he's got under 5 points?
No.
0. Not a single game under 5 points. That is the epitome of a guy that's been able to do well against good defenses and bad defenses. Now, but you're right. The question is percentages. How often does a guy with an MVP index over 100 have a great game, meaning 20 or more points PPR, against a solid defense? That's the study that I'm going to be doing going back the last several years. You've got all that data for defense.
Yeah.
So I'm going to add in the offense, and we're going to see how that ends up being and get an idea of what did it do this year? What has it done over the last 5 years?
Yeah.
And get an idea of better numbers that we can recommend going forward. But there's a random player that shows you where he is on that. It's just because of the way MVP is calculated. It looks at the games over 10 points, under 5, and over 20. So an over 20 game is like having 2 good games for a guy, okay?
Yeah.
And under 5 is a horrible game. So the rest of his games, 77.5% of the time, he has had 10 or more points. That's pretty solid. That's one of the best in the league. So what that tells me is that 22%, 22.5% of the time, he was somewhere between 5 and 9 points. Do we need to break it down anymore? I don't know if we do, because I think that gives us actually 4 different batches of games to look at. And we could say, okay, so we know that 52.5% of the time, he was between 11 and 19 points. That's a pretty good game in fantasy football. So
It is.
when you look at the points and you break the percentages down, you get an idea of just how spectacular it is. Let's look at one other guy. How about Saquon Barkley? He's got 42 games over that time frame. 78.6% of the time he was over 10 points. 35.7% of the time he was over 20 points.
Wow.
But here's the kicker. 46% of the time this season, he's been over 20 points. He's got a better over 20 percentage than some running backs have over 10 this year. That's the scary part of what's going on with him. And the same thing applies to wide receivers. So over that same course of time, Justin Jefferson with 39 games played, full games played. 82.1% of his games have been over 10 points. 53.8, he's been over 20. But he has had 7.7 games that have been less than 5 points.
Wow.
Over the last 2.5 years. So, and that percentage is exact this year versus the last two. And in fact, his percentages are pretty close. 82% over 10 versus 84 this year. 53.8 over 20 versus 50 or 46.
So it'd be nice to have that data like grouped in like wide receiver 1s, 2s, and 3.
Yes.
And then kind of judge, it's the reference class judgment there. I would like to see that. And I think my com data is another way to maybe in the Bush figure to look at that. I mean, we haven't really fleshed all this out yet. I mean, I just see so much work to do, Dennis.
Well, the amazing thing, though, Professor, is that the only reason we know this is because we're tracking it.
Yeah.
Okay. And we know where we need to go next.
Yeah.
Only based on the questions that pop up during the year. But here's the thing. Questions are good because questions lead you to that next discovery in science.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, we've got too many to discover. We've got so many because there's so much data. Even though there's only 17 data points a year, 18 if you want to, 17 data points, 17 games, 18 weeks of fantasy football.
Yep.
If you're psychotic and you play that last week.
Yeah.
When it's, everybody and their third uncle's taken off because there's nothing to decide. And that could be a problem during the fantasy football playoffs this year. The Chiefs have 3 games in 11 days coming up.
Yeah.
That third game on Christmas Day, if let's say Buffalo loses against the Lions this week and the Chiefs win their next 2 games, they're in a position where they don't need to play the last 2 games to win.
Yeah.
They could have first seed locked depending on what Buffalo does.
Yeah.
If Buffalo stumbles at all, it opens up the door for the Chiefs not having to play the regulars on Christmas Day, which is
Dennis,
fantasy football weekend.
I need to pull out the script. I've been looking at weekly scripts. I need the season script for, the rig for the Chiefs there. Cause, I know that they've got the script for the Lions this year. Cause I know they won't, that's the rigged Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
and they want
Yeah,
the Chiefs to do a three-peat so everybody will buy Taylor Swift merchandise, with Chiefs on it. I know the rig, Goodell and the rest of them. I'm sure they've all rigged it so there's got their hands on a percentage of the merchandise there of
well,
the merch.
you noticed since the officials started wearing those little headsets
Yeah,
how hinky some of this stuff has gotten.
yeah. Well, Taylor's
So
been whispering to them.
so now we're seeing drones flying to knock balls away from Cooper Cup and the
Yeah,
start of the fantasy football playoffs. And now the referees are
well,
in on it.
yeah. Well, the drones are flashing the red light, and that means
That
Chiefs
yeah,
win. Yeah,
it's so predictable. I mean,
yeah.
it's
Or Taylor's lipstick, depends on how red it is. I
there
know
you
it's
go.
all rigged.
It's all
So,
rigged.
but
It's like
I
WWE,
mean, I'm a Saints
It's
fan, so we expect it to be rigged against us. But that's why we celebrate each game is our Super Bowl. So that's how
hey,
we.
hey, your boys are climbing into the playoff discussion
Well,
though. How about
if
that?
Atlanta keeps doing what they're doing and Tampa Bay stumbles, I guess anything's possible at this point. But I'm not going to be tricked. I know that, we're building, right? That's the trick in New Orleans. We're always building.
Well,
Never getting there, but we're building.
the trick will be playing just good enough not to get a top draft pick, so
Yeah,
you'll
well,
always
that
stay in
that takes
that
tricks.
level.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that tricks. Yeah.
All right, Professor. Enough of
We've
this
we've beaten
nonsense.
that.
It's
Yeah. Do
time
we
to
want to trot a little bit of draft out?
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
We
So
did want
before we
to.
jump into there, I do want to talk about our draft night out league. So just for folks that aren't aware of what draft night out is, were leagues that were run at the Fantasy Football Expo.
Yep.
So it's all hardcore fantasy football people that got together in leagues. Gina Noble had signed up for a league not knowing she would get asked to join the Queen's Classic, which are some of the invitational leagues that are done at Expo every year. And as a result, she had a team available. She asked if anybody would adopt the team for her, and she picked me to adopt her team for her, wanting us to do a good job. So we are third seed, which isn't bad. We have scored the most points all season long, and we have had the second most points scored against us all year long. So our defense sucks, Professor. We need to figure
Yeah,
out how to keep people from scoring against us.
yeah,
But we have some interesting decisions to make because Jordan Love and Baker Mayfield have been our two quarterbacks most of the season. We picked up Baker after week one,
yeah.
and he has been in our starting lineup at times. Jordan Love's been our main starter when he's healthy. So Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield, that's the decision. This is a one quarterback league, and that's a decision I'm not really set on, except I don't like that matchup for Baker against the Chargers. Their defense has been rather stingy.
Yeah. Just quickly looking at Green Bay, it looks fine against Seattle. So I'm trying to find Tampa Bay here just real quick. And let's see. So Green Bay, 46 and a half. So there's nothing there. Let's see. Tampa Bay, where are you? Trying to find. Oh, Tampa Bay is playing the Chargers, 45. So a little bit lower score. And Tampa Bay is not favored. Green Bay is favored. So that's something. Let me look at 10 here. Uh,
Both are on the road as well.
yeah, both are on the road. Let's see. So Tampa Bay. Actually, slight favor to Love, but when I say slight, it really is slight. Uh, because the Chargers are really tough on running and against the tight end, but they're okay They're not a big deal against wide receivers, and the quarterback's a little bit rough, whereas Love gets pretty good everything. So it looks like Tampa Bay is going to be forced to pass, Dennis, and Green Bay can run or pass. So if that muddies the water, it looks like Baker's going to have to pass, which can be good. And Love may not have to pass as much against Seattle. Just if you just look, isolated, nothing else, just look at the defense against position. So I will give you that. You may get deeper, or that's you want to stop there?
No, that's pretty deep and kind of how I've got the game analyzed as well. You know, my feeling is that we've seen pretty efficient games from Jordan Love. Even though his passing number of passing attempts is down, his efficiency has been pretty strong. And we got Baker with four turnovers in the last 2 weeks against weak defenses.
Yeah.
Weaker defenses. So while he did fine, now he goes up against a tough defense. I'm just a little concerned at that scoring in that game being down. So I'm leaning Jordan Love, but it's not. But like you say, it's not by a lot.
Well, I will get a little deeper. They are declining in efficiency, and their tendency on the road is exactly opposite of what the Chargers give them. So they want to run and pass less. And that's exactly opposite of what the Chargers on paper would let them do. So adds to the confusion of their versus, the Green Bay, like I said, they on paper shouldn't have any problem running or passing. Green Bay is improving. So we got an improving team and a declining team. And Love seems to be favorite as well there.
So the question I have in this lineup is we not only have Love, but at wide receiver, of course, we started out with Godwin.
Mm-hmm.
So he was our top wide receiver on this team. So our choices at wide receiver are Jaden Reed,
Yeah,
Romeo Dobbs, Cedric Tillman's out,
mm-hmm.
so we lose him. We have Quentin Johnson, Michael Pittman, or Ray McLeod that are available as other wide receivers. Nothing on waivers that really excites me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure we have a pivot play on waivers right now. We've got Devon Vale, who's been really inconsistent, Keyshawn Butte for New England, Kendrick Bourne for New England. Mm-hmm. Those guys have been really woefully up and down. Tim Patrick from Detroit had a big week last week, but he scored more fantasy points last week than he had all year up until that point. Sterling Shepard is an interesting one, but he's listed questionable right now. Mm-hmm. And then we've got Calvin Austin with Pittsburgh, who really disappointed last week.
Yep.
And that's about it. Tyler Lockett, who's really been falling off. The interesting one, though, is David Moore from Carolina. He had a bad week last week, but has had some big games target-wise. 2 games over 9 targets before last week in a row. But Thielen's back and healthy and seems to be the guy that that will take the air out of the balloon over there. So I don't really see anything in the wide receiver group that really excites me. But yeah, it's a tough week to try to figure out what you're doing with things going forward here. But so the question is, do we roll the dice and figure Reed and Dobbs are going to be the double ups for any Jordan Love touchdown? Or do we go ahead and say, well, we're a little bit worried about the passing volume, so we go a different direction with both of our wide receivers? Or do we play one Green Bay wide receiver and not the other? That's the big question mark right now. And I'm not really sure I have an answer for that one.
Dennis, I wish I could bring clarity, but I can't. Reed, I've got him as a 3 this week.
Yeah, and I agree with that, because if you look at my my calculations, Jaden Reed has fallen all the way to 34th right now.
A 3 is what I got him.
He's a solid 3. So
yes, he's a flex.
Yeah, he's a flex, but we have to play. We don't have a slam dunk at wide receiver right now, because we lost Godwin, and Jaden Reed started the season strong, but is faded.
Yeah.
So I look at that as our vulnerability on our team right now. In our lineup, I've got Quentin Johnson and Jaden Reed. Quentin Johnson will go up against a very weak Tampa defense, and Ladd McConkey is still not 100%. And as much as people want to make fun of Quentin Johnson, so he's got 10 games this year, Professor, that were full games where he played 60% or more of the snaps. In those 10 games, he has been over 10 points 6 times. He's been over 20 points twice, 20% of his games over 20 points. That's not too bad.
Is McConkey going to play?
McConkey's going to play, but he's not 100%. But he's likely to start.
If McConkey plays, I've got Quentin Johnson as a 3-4.
Yeah, and I think all of our wide receivers are 3-4s, because our other guys are Pittman, Ray McLeod, and Dobbs.
Pittman, is he due for a week?
One would say yes, but he's going up against Denver.
Damn.
At Denver. Yeah. So I look at that as being, what is he going to do? So 12 games he's played full.
I've got him as a 3-4. I've got those guys all about right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is what I would say. Pittman, I've got him at the highest uncertainty.
I'd agree with that.
Quentin Johnson, mid uncertainty. Jalen Reed, lowest uncertainty. In other words, I think Reed's going to get us something, but I don't know the ceiling. Whereas I think somebody like Pittman is going to be 0, or he could be a really outstanding game. But we could get 0. So I think it's almost a probability kind of. So probably Quentin Johnson's probably the one in the middle that's probably the steadiest to get us a 3-4 score, like more of a sure 10 than Pittman. Pittman could be more of a sure 0, but he could have 20.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I've got it analyzed now. So here's the way I looked at it: is I said, okay, if I look at these guys who are actually playing against the tougher defenses, and it's ironically Pittman and McLeod.
Yes.
And McLeod is already my more volatile guy. So that's why I eliminated him. And Pittman just has been struggling because that passing game has struggled. Now you go up against a tough defense in Denver on the road. I don't like all of those things being additive. So the question I have is do you go ahead and do you play Jaden Reed and Dobbs and throw all your money at the Green Bay passing attack?
I see what you're going to do there. Yeah.
Or do you put Quentin Johnson and Jaden Reed in, knowing that Jaden Reed is the guy who tends to be, because he's in the slot, kind of the guy that can spike weak for you on a. But here's the thing: if you look at Jaden Reed's usage, over the last 4 games, it's dropped way down.
So do we need a Pittman? Do we need that, or can we get away with a safe?
Well, I'm not so sure that.
I mean, if we looked at our opponent, do we need lots of points, or do we need median points?
But here's the thing, Professor. Pittman has been, over the last 2 years combined, he's been under 5 points 9% of the time.
Yeah.
This season, he has been under 16.7% of the time. So his bad game percentage has actually risen.
Yeah.
The guy whose bad game percentage has actually dropped is ironically the lowest MVP guy. But even his, Ray McLeod's still averaging 15% of those really bad games. So I guess in this situation where everybody is volatile, I'd probably be looking at, okay, who's got the most spike games? And Reed's got 4 over the last 2 years plus, including 2 this year. Dobbs has 0.
Yeah, I wouldn't play Dobbs.
So I would not play Dobbs. I'm leaning towards playing Quentin Johnson, who, believe it or not, has had 2 spike games, 2 over 20 games this year. 18% of the time he's been over 20 points this year. It's not great, but it's not awful. And I'd be leaning towards Quentin Johnson and Reed just based on that. But I'm also Quentin Johnson, I think, is in the starting lineup. When I look at all of the data, the question is Dobbs, Pittman, McLeod, or Jaden Reed for that last spot. And, with Green Bay, knowing they got to win to keep going, and they know that they didn't do well when they didn't throw to Reed, do they game plan him a little bit more? I've got to look maybe at the data a little bit closer and see how the Seahawks do against other slot receivers. And that might be the decision maker. Running back, I think we're in pretty good shape. Chase Brown, Derrick Henry, James Conner, Joe Mixon.
Yep.
Those are must starts. They're all top 12 guys.
Yeah.
And then Travis Kelce at tight end is obviously. I did pick up Stone Smart as our second tight end with everybody going down with the Chargers. So I was able to put Tillman on the IR since he's already out and grab Stone Smart just to keep him away from everybody else. We do have Isaiah Davis and Kamani Vidal as backups, but I don't see any moves that I could make that wouldn't put Connor, Mixon, Chase Brown, and Derrick Henry in our starting lineup. I think that's the strength of our team.
The only other long shot is Lazard out there.
Lazard is out there. He is available.
He came back last week. got a little activity. He does have a history. They have a pretty good matchup versus Jacksonville. I don't know if I'd play him over Reed or Johnson, but that may be something if we continue that, I don't know who else you got out there, but, under certain conditions, he could be viable as a 3-4 in a flex just down the road. I mean, again, depends on, I don't know the structure of the team, but I've got him in a couple leagues, and I'm thinking if I need some points, then if he came back last week off IR. He seemed like he got a little attention. I'm just wondering, is he going to find a lot more with Jacksonville this week? The DAPs say he should.
Yeah, my only question is, it's like, do they
even need that?
Do they need it? Yeah, and that's the big question. But boy, these are not easy decisions this week.
No. I think I'd go where you're at, but I would if I don't think I'd play Dobbs. I think I'd stick with Reed and Quentin. That seems safest of everything you said. And if you think safe is the way to go, I think if you think we need points, people like Pittman, Sterling Shepard, those could be a spiky situation.
Yeah, I think with our running backs, if we can get, I will say this, if we get 16 or more points from our wide receivers, we'll be okay.
I think Reed can get us 8. I think both of them can get us 8.
Yeah, and here's the good thing is we are going up against some good wide receivers. Yeah. So his wide receivers are Jerry Jeudy, DK Metcalf, Garrett Wilson, and Devonta Smith. Wow. So he's got the wide receiver sort of complement that we have at running back, where we could use one really good wide receiver. Right. And he's getting lucky because Ken Walker's going to be out, so he gets Zach Charbonnet in. Ooh. And then he gets Najee Harris, but he's going up against a tough Philly team. Yeah. So, I think we're going to be okay. We've got the edge on defense. We got the Chiefs against Cleveland in the rain. He's got the Giants against Baltimore. Mm-hmm. I like our matchup there. Yeah. And
his quarterback.
He's got Mahomes in the rain against Love. So I'm feeling okay about that. I'm not thrilled, but I'm not that. I don't believe that Mahomes is going to go off for like a 40-point game.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be, I think him and Jordan Love should be pretty close.
Yeah.
And cancel each other out.
Yeah. Okay. So, okay. Well, I think that's where we're at then. Reed and Quentin Johnson, but, it's tough.
Tough and subject to change towards game time. We might decide to go Pittman and Johnson. And that way, if Love has a bad game, we only have one position that we're hurt at.
Yeah.
Quarterback. Right. So that's maybe a way to insulate ourselves as well. But we've got plenty of time before game time to figure that one out. But always good to go through these lineup decisions to kind of get an idea of sort of the process that you need to go through, because there was no slam dunk at wide receiver. I can make a case for every one of those wide receivers and 2 guys on waivers, because we don't have strong wide receivers this year. We lost Godwin, and that was a huge loss. And at one time, according to my consensus weekly values, Jaden Reed was as high as 14th this year. So the fact that he's fallen all the way off to 31st tells you, or I should say down to 34th right now. That's pretty low. So they're all in that same grouping, though. They're all pretty much outside of the top 30, which is not an appealing place to be. But, Professor, maybe we get a clue when we look at your power rankings and your efficiency data for the week.
Yeah, I was just looking at Green Bay is higher than the Chargers this week. So, but Tampa Bay and Green Bay are right there together. They're the same. So I don't know. So our question was Love versus,
Mayfield.
yeah, they're right there. Efficiency, Green Bay all the way. Last 3 games, they've been the second best in the league in the
Wow.
last 3 games. And
I do like
now
that. Yeah.
that's rushing, passing, it's everything. So more of a complete team, which you see, I don't know, this is another study, right? A complete team, is that really good for fantasy? If they're spreading it out, running, passing, is that good versus always passing? Depends on your makeup of your team, right? But so, Tampa Bay is one of the worst in efficiency. Uh, so, you know, that would be interesting to track as well. Is that good for fantasy? If you're good efficiency in the last 3 weeks, what does that mean for wide receivers versus running back scoring? Looking at your MVP, tracking that kind of thing. I don't know the answer to that because we never combine this data or the power rankings with your MVP, which would be interesting to track that. I've got all these for this year for sure. Probably even last year, we could probably track that data. I'm not sure I've got it in an easy database, but we could track that data. We could put together. I'll have more time this year. So
Very
just want,
interesting,
I guess,
Professor.
just you see, that's the question: is a complete team better for fantasy? That they can run and pass their choice versus got to run versus got to pass. In other words, where there isn't a choice. I'm trying to think of a got to run team. You probably could think about that better than
Oh,
me.
Buffalo's running the ball
Yeah. So
all over people. Yeah.
yeah, but having Allen being a runner as well.
Yeah.
So is that better for the wide receivers? Probably. You see what I'm saying? That could be
Yeah.
part of our matchup is how does the team come in and out of their efficiency? Do they ascend to be a spread out kind of team versus got to pass, got to run? That would be interesting.
I wonder if that data can be actually broken down for the passing game.
That's what I'm saying. You look
And
at
see,
passing
yeah,
yards and running
yeah.
yards.
That'd be interesting to see if that holds any weight when you look at it at the individual positions. I think there's something there,
I
and
just don't know what yet. Yeah.
definitely needs more research. But I love the fact that Green Bay's been efficient. I do like that because I like to score points.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I don't care how you end up scoring points because, even the most run heavy teams pass the ball almost half the time.
Yeah.
So those are the points that I'm after in this case of looking at, but very interesting. I think
Yep.
there's what we have learned a lot. We have learned a lot from this data this year, but we've also learned of where we need to follow up the
Study.
research.
Yeah. Yeah. For this week, we got some Huskies and we got some Squirrels.
Oof.
So you want to start the worst game, Dennis, is Jets in Jacksonville. Did you want to talk
Yeah,
about?
let's start with the squirreliest of the of the squirrel games here.
Yeah. So I haven't put so Vegas says 23, 16, 3.5, 40 points.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so they actually give Jacksonville a shot. That's interesting versus the Jets. My efficiency would say no, the Jets should crush them. So that's interesting. Vegas is not buying that. Jacksonville's at home, and I guess I don't know who the quarterback is. Is it who's the quarterback?
Yeah, it'll be Mac Jones.
Matt Jones, easy, but the tight end and Ingram. So I guess Strange is taking over for Ingram.
Strange in there for Ingram. Yep.
Yeah, tough. So it looks like they should be. There's nothing to stop them from running and passing, but I wouldn't play the tight end. The Jets should play them all, everybody, including the kicker and the D. I mean, on paper, the DAP say Jets win. Jets are away, and the Jets will rush less, pass more, and they're improving. Jacksonville declining. Home, they tend to rush a little less, pass a little more, but nothing dramatic. But they love away games, and they're at home. So it's really they're declining. They're at home. So and the DAPs, everything seems to point to a bigger blowout than what Vegas is saying. That's what it looks to me on paper.
Yeah, and I do like the Jets here. I think -3 is too low. I think this is going to be an even lower scoring game. I think both teams going to make a lot of mistakes.
So you take
So
Jets money line under.
yeah, I'll take the Jets, and I'll give the points. I like the under, but I probably wouldn't play it because this game is, there's going to
Any
be a lot of
weather or
uncertainty.
anything?
No weather issues to worry about for this game. I mean, could you get a pop-up shower?
Yeah,
Yeah,
down there in
It's
Florida.
Jacksonville. It's the rainy season, but as far as a sustained frontal boundary driven rain, no,
Okay.
it's going to be more the pop-up variety,
Okay.
and this is an early game, so
No, nothing to worry about.
tends to be pop-ups tend to happen a little bit later in the day. If they're going to happen. Let's look at another
KC
squirrel. Let's go
and
look at Casey and Cleveland, the other squirrely game on the
you know,
list.
my last thing about the Jets, it just seems kind of nondescript. It's I'm not excited or I'm not depressed. I'm kind of like if I've got to play Brees Hall or Davis or Garrett Wilson or or I wouldn't play Strange. I'd find another tight end somewhere. I don't know who. Maybe Strong out of the charge. Somebody. I think I'd avoid
Yeah.
that. That,
Yeah.
but that's my feeling. It's very vanilla. Nothing for my fantasy playoffs seems to be riding on that game. Probably.
No, and I wouldn't want to have anything riding on this game. Mac Jones had a really good game in relief of Trevor Lawrence, and then went out last week and had a 7-point game.
Yeah,
We
that's not
really,
good. You think
yeah,
the defense, like, okay, you tricked us, but we got you now. We know
yeah,
who you are.
we know who Mac Jones is, and Mac Jones is so he's played 4 games this year. Okay,
Yeah.
he's got 6, 5, 7, and 26 points. Those are his 4 games. So, it's the old one of these doesn't look like the others, and
Right.
that one good game stands out.
Right.
But we
Yeah.
know who
Okay.
Mac Jones is. Now, the interesting thing is Brian Thomas has been sort
On
of quarterback
fire.
proof. He's had 3 solid games in a row here
Yeah.
with Mac Jones at quarterback. So
Yeah.
you look at
Okay.
that and you say, okay, if I got to start him, I got to start him. But anything else on that team, I would be running away.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to play either ETN or Bigsby in this game, although they both scored double digits last
Yeah.
week. I think the split is there, and I think their split is more likely to add up to about 12 or 15 than it did the 24
Yeah.
last week. So KC at
And
Cleveland.
Cleveland's at home. Cleveland, of course, the underdog. KC should beat them by 4 points. I think Vegas has it at 42 points. Is that right? 42 and a half minus 4. So they think Cleveland keeps up, though, but only 4 points. So that's kind of interesting. KC loves to tease us. The script says KC wins the last second with a field goal, right? That's the
Yeah.
script going in. That's work for them. The referees are clued in now.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And so they know what they need to do. So it's
Fixes in.
all, yeah. It should be a Kelsey game, damn it, Dennis. I need a 20-point, couple touchdown, maybe 24-point. I need lots of points from Kelsey in my playoffs. Play the KC defense extra easy. You want to play them all day long because Cleveland's going to give it up. Don't play the kickers. Cleveland's tough on the quarterback, tough on Pacheco and Hunt. I'm concerned if I've got, and I do have Pacheco in one and Hunt in the other, and I feel like I'm a little worried they'll cut each other, and KC doesn't need Pacheco yet. I think Pacheco is the playoff wonderkin, and that's when they give him the go signal, right? That's when they pull out the blinders and say, "Go forward, young man," and pull out the crop and beat him and make him, carry the load. And KC doesn't need the referees anymore in the playoffs. So, but Mahomes is going to have to earn his biscuits. So I don't think this is. And you said there's weather, so it looks like passing should be okay, especially to Kelsey, I hope. But the rushing looks to be the issue there. Cleveland looks like James Winston passing all day long to us. Njoku, if he can play, Judy, Moore, whoever else. I wouldn't play the kicker or the D. And looks like Chubb is going to have to earn extra biscuits there to do anything in this game. KC doesn't really can do good home or away. Away, they tend to run a little more, pass a little less. So that's exactly opposite, but it's not just so dramatic. It's +6, -10 on rushing and passing attempts. So there's nothing dramatically skewed that way. Cleveland loves home. They are at home. I mean, but it's their efficiency is really good. They're home, and it doesn't matter. They pass more at home, and that's what they're going to need to do. And they are improving, Dennis. So it looks to be close, and I think Vegas even has -4 close. So I think it'll be an entertaining game, and I would definitely play them all as far as the passing components and the KCD. I'm worried about the rushing side of this game.
And I'm worried about the passing side in addition to the rushing side because this is the combination that I don't like to see.
This is the weather?
It's the weather because we're going to have enough wind. Okay, so you're not talking 40-mile-an-hour winds, okay? But you're talking probably in that 15 to 25 range, which starts to affect it. It'll be a crosswind component to it because it will be more of an easterly wind component instead of due south. It's going to be a cold rain. And here's one thing that I have noticed is when the temperature is in the 40s and it rains, seems to be worse for ball handling than if it's in the 60s and rain. Okay. So I look at cold rain, windy, and could be some spurts of rain that are pretty significant. Um, but it is going to be a showery type rain situation. It's frontal driven,
Right.
and timing is going to be crucial as well. The models have actually been trying to hustle the precipitation in a little bit quicker than it's been moving out ahead of this front. Folks in Iowa were not happy with that because it did get in there on time with temperatures below freezing. So they saw a nasty freezing rainstorm last night.
Ooh, I hate freezing rain.
Oh, it is the worst. And we're going to have rain here in central Illinois, shortly after we get done with this podcast recording it. But the rain has been a little bit slow moving from west to east. So they might start out dry with some wind and get into the rain as we get into about the second quarter or so. So timing is going to be crucial. I think this is going to be a messy played game.
Right.
Lots of turnovers for Cleveland is likely. Kansas City probably play a pretty vanilla attack, so I like the under, and I like Kansas City to figure out a way to cover that 4-point spread. All right, enough of these squirrels. Let's see what we got in a huskier variety of game. But I will remind folks that one of the huskiest games was one of the more disappointing games with only 18 points scored on Thursday night when we were supposed to get 48-49 as the over-unders.
Yeah.
So that
we
was
have
disappointing.
one Husky left.
Well, let's look at the Husky puppy.
Okay.
Let's
well,
look
we
at
got
Houston
a
and
bunch
Miami.
of those. Okay. Houston, Miami. Okay. Houston over Miami, 2.5 points, 46. Nothing's dramatic there. It looks like they're close. It's game 7 here. Let's see, game 7. Where are you? Here it is. So, Houston's at home. Play the defense if you want to stream. Looks like the tight end. Looks like Schultz should have his day. He has not had his day. He needs to have his day if you drafted him, and I didn't. So I guess a good kicker, Fairbairn, is his day. Rushing is fine, so Mixon should have a nice game. We need a couple touchdowns for our
That
draft
would be
night.
good. That would
Yeah.
be good.
Even the passing. It looks like on paper that Houston is more dramatic. They can run and pass. Miami, the rushing is going to be tough. A-Chain is probably going to have to catch out of the backfield, not rush. And so Jalen Wright, I don't know if I'd play him. I think A-Chain's going to have to catch out of the backfield and get dynamic. And we've seen that before, and it looks like passing all day from Tua. Looks like you play your Tyreek Hill shares. Probably some Waddle. I know we need some Waddle in our dynasty.
Oh yeah.
After Cup
Oh yeah.
killing us there, we need to move on, Dennis. We got to quit goofing around in that team. So you need to give a pep talk to our players there, Waddle especially. So I'm hoping Waddle will get us a touchdown. And so it looks like it's passing for Miami, including the running back, but Houston looks like it's a Mixon kind of show that will open up the passing. Houston, they're both improving, Dennis. Both of these, Houston and Miami, are both improving on efficiency. They're almost dead even in the 70s, almost 80. So home away splits, Houston is fine. Usually a home, they rush 13% less, pass more. They're going to have to turn that up for our Mixon players. So that's interesting that they've had that tendency. But Mixon's done a lot with a little, so maybe that's some of that. Miami away likes to rush a little more and pass less, and that's exactly
opposite of what the defense will give them. So this looks like a whoever's got the ball last wins kind of game. And I think it should be some jaunty points scored here, Dennis. This may be higher than people think. I don't know. I don't think we have to worry about the weather, right? Houston's indoors, right? So,
That is correct. And
yeah, so,
I think this will be a bit of a track meet feel to this game.
yeah,
I think Houston will try to run a lot to try to keep
uh-huh,
that Miami offense off the field,
yeah,
but I think they'll be pretty efficient doing it. So I like the over on this game. 46.5, pretty healthy points, but I'll take the over. I like Miami plus 2.5. I think since two has come back, he has been really, really good. And Houston's defense took a step back, especially the passing
yep.
defense. So I'm looking for Miami to light it up on the old scoreboard, but Houston to keep with them. I think it'll be a close game. I'll
Mhm.
take Miami plus the 2.5, and I'll take the over in this one.
I think if I was buying that Miami wins, I would look at the passing props for A Chain
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and thinking he'd get a lot of attempts, passing attempts. I don't know. I know you can bet that, so I might parlay, Miami points over and maybe an A Chain thing and maybe a mixing thing. Maybe that's your 4 leg parlay there for $2 for a $2 holler, Dennis. That's about all I want to risk on this game. But I think I want to do some parlays to get me some odds here. But maybe a mixing touchdown, an A chain, 5 or 6 catches, a Miami win, and an over. That ought to get you what, 5, 6, 7 to 1, something like that
So
on your parlay.
they're expecting a big game for A Chain. They've got his over under at receptions at 4.5.
Yeah,
So
but
that's pretty
I'm not saying that. I'm not scared of that number. I think 6 would scare me. 5,
reception receiving yards is 33.5. I think he's
I think,
probably over there.
yeah, but I think I'd try to figure out a way to get A chain in that parlay a little bit. I just don't know how you want to play it.
They
But
got
I haven't thought of any of this. This is just me thinking right now. I don't know how I'm going to play my $2 prop this week or $4 or whatever I'm going to do.
they have two at 267.5.
That seems a little low.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that's I think they
Maybe
got him.
that's maybe that's your Mixon Tua
Yeah.
over Miami points and something. I don't know. I think it's an opportunity. I think it's going to be a jaunty game, and I think of course, I thought that about Frisco and the Rams. I was thinking a Puka touchdown. I had for $2, I think I had Puka. I think I had a Kettle touchdown, and I had a good $2 parlay and just didn't materialize with no touchdowns. So don't
Yeah.
listen to me.
And
Or if you do bet like $1 or 2, that's it. We're not investing the rent this week on
no,
this
and I
game.
think that's a good one. They got two all the way over 36.5 passing attempts. That's pretty high. So they are seeing what you're seeing with him having to
That's what it
throw the
looks
ball.
like. That's what it looks like
Yeah.
to me. Is a Tua all day long with his running backs and his receivers.
I think
Tyreek could even slip in the backfield and catch some stuff.
yeah, and Tyreek's got a uh his over under is 71.5 yards and 5.5
Mm,
receptions. I
that's
like that
interesting.
number. I like both of those numbers.
I think there's some meat here. Just I hadn't figured out exactly where I need to bite.
No, I think there could be some pretty big games in both offenses
Yeah.
this week. So that might be a
Of
juicy
course, we
game.
probably would have said the same thing for Frisco and the Rams. So, folks, just
Yeah, the
that's
rain
why.
the rain got me worried. I didn't didn't see the rain being as big of a problem. I thought the rain would show up a little bit later.
Yeah.
So, but once the rain got there, I was like, I'm a little
Yeah.
concerned about this. But they did have some dry periods, and they just couldn't capitalize.
Couldn't. Yeah.
It was a
Anyway, this
doggone
game
drone.
should be a lot more jauntier. Let's hope. Right?
Yeah,
We
they
want
can't get
lots of
they can't get those drones inside. So we're
no,
good to
no,
see the balls won't get deflected by the
right,
drones. Remember, it
right.
was the drones that cost
The
us
drones.
the
Yeah.
problems. All right, let's look at the
Detroit, Buffalo.
juiciest
Yeah.
Detroit Buffalo. I am really excited about this
54,
game.
28, 25.
Wow.
It's basically a pick 'em, Dennis. It's a pick 'em. So, I mean, that's what they say. Let me find the 13 here. Detroit, look at the DAPS though.
Woo!
You see, Vegas says one thing. The DAPS are saying Buffalo's going to have to earn everything they get. Detroit is going to rush and bamboozle Buffalo, Dennis. The Knuckles and Sonic will keep the Bills off their game. And if Detroit wins, it'll be because of the rush. I think Sun God will do okay. I think if I was parlaying anything, I might go each a touchdown. Gibbs and Montgomery, anytime touchdown. But I don't know about that over 50. The DAPs say be cautious on that play. Buffalo has been okay as efficiency. Detroit has been declining relative to them earlier in the season, Dennis. So this is only measuring the last 3 weeks, and they've struggled compared to earlier in the season here. Detroit's at home. They love the pass a lot. So, and the DAPs say pass a lot. So maybe Tim Patrick, maybe Sun God, maybe who's the other one? Not Addison. Williams. Is that
Yes,
yeah, yeah.
Jameson Williams. Yep.
Yeah, maybe that's some part of your parlay there. Buffalo at home really doesn't do much of anything. They love their home games, though, Dennis. Their home away is 28% better at home. So they're away, that's not good. And the DAPs say that's not good. So it looks like this is a pick 'em. The DAPs would say Buffalo is going to. I mean, Allen's going to pull it out. Allen, if he has a good game, they can beat him, and if he is stymied and gets shaken, then Detroit should win by the rushing.
This is going to be an interesting matchup because when Detroit has played weak offenses, their defense has been super stingy. And even against average offenses like the Colts, they only gave up 6 points, and then it gave them only 6 to the Jags. But against the good offenses, they just gave up 31 to the Packers, and the Bears not even a great offense. They gave up 20 to them on Thanksgiving Day. This is a matter of which team shows up on the defensive side for Detroit. And conversely, Buffalo's defense has not been doing as well here over the last few weeks. It's almost like people figured them out. And we've been seeing all of a sudden, they just gave up 44 to the Rams. They gave up, they gave up 21 to my Chiefs, gave up 27 to the Dolphins. I mean, they're giving up points in the 20s with the exception of that 49ers game where they just absolutely manhandled them in the snow. But you got to take that one out. against everybody else. They're giving up in the 20s to 30s and then the 40s against the Rams last week. 44 points to the Rams, 38 of that to the offense. Boy, as much as I'm tempted to go over, figuring we're going to see the game of the year as far as points, I got to go under that point spread, and I got to give it to Detroit's running game to be able to shorten this game up, keep Josh Allen off the field. Superman's going to have to be Superman.
Yep.
Josh Allen's going to have to absolutely pull out all the stops. He had 6 touchdowns in a losing cause last week, though.
I'm going to play Shakir. I mean, I'm not scared.
Yes.
You know, I would play Cook if I had him. I'm going to play Sonic and Knuckles.
Yeah.
I'm going to play Sun God.
Yep.
I just don't know if I'm playing Tim Patrick. I don't know.
No.
I'm playing Allen. I'm probably playing Goff because I believe that he's going to be efficient and will score some touchdowns or maybe pass to Gibbs. So I mean, if I've got better choices as your MVP, you told us who's above 100, right? And you said Allen. So I would play Allen, but if I didn't have Allen, Goff would be in the lower mix compared to some choices I might have. Oh, okay. Let's do Goff versus Love. I'm probably playing Love.
Yeah, Goff versus Love, it's close for me. I'm probably leaning to Goff at home.
Okay.
He's been so good at home, and I like having my quarterback at home. Less noise, less confusion. And we just saw Stafford put up 320 yards passing and 2 touchdowns against this Buffalo defense. If you don't get behind the sticks against Buffalo, you can run on first down and second down. You can get some positive yards early in the sequence. You can move the ball on this Buffalo defense, and you can beat them with good wide receivers. So you got the Sun God, you got Jamison Williams, you can go deep. I like Detroit here, and I think, obviously, Sonic and Knuckles are going to have probably really good games. But I do think Goff's going to have to, if Goff is going to stay with Buffalo, because we know Josh Allen's going to put some points up. If Detroit can beat them, and I think Detroit will beat them at home, I think it's actually a little insulting to Detroit not to be the favorite by 1 in this game. If they can beat Buffalo at home, Goff's going to have to get 2 touchdowns. He's going to have to throw for 2 touchdowns or more. And that's where I kind of like that opportunity. But I think Detroit can control this game a little bit, and that's why I'd probably take the under. It doesn't mean I think this is going to be a 30-point scoring game between the two. I think it'll be in the upper 40s.
Is pretty high.
54 is a healthy number, and I think you can keep that number. Now, of course, last week, LA and Buffalo put 86 on the board.
Yeah,
I don't see that happening either, because Detroit's defense is much better than the Rams' defense, and Detroit's offense is better than the Rams' offense. So I think Detroit will win at home, and I think it'll be in the upper 40s on points. So I would take the under and take Detroit at home. So head on over to the scienceoffantasyfootball.com. I'll have my consensus data out a little late this week, folks, but the best of the best is out already, and I'll have the consensus data out here shortly. So that'll be up by the time you're listening or looking to make your picks tomorrow for lineups. The professor's data on matchups, defense against position. That is
That
very
should be out
key.
today sometime.
And that'll be posted by the time you're listening to this as well, and making your decisions on Sunday. And then, of course, head on back here next Wednesday for another edition of the Science of Fantasy Football.
Get to work, folks. Don't get cute.
Good advice.
That was good advice.
Never get cute. Never get cute.
Never get cute. We got some good games here. I think so.
This should be a fun weekend to start the fantasy football playoffs because
boy, I need some
got
points in some of these Debo leagues that I started Debo in 3 leagues out of the 21, and I also had Purdy in some of those, so I'm kind of behind it twice there. And I know our dynasty with Cooper Kupp scoring 0, that didn't help.
No, that's going to hurt because we don't have anybody that is going to be, I mean,
we're going to have to hope for Waddle.
I want Bucky Irving to be starting.
Yes. We need a 2-touchdown Bucky Irving game.
We lost out to get Sincere McCormick. We were tied in dollar bids.
Wow.
And we lost out on a tie because we were higher ranked than they were. So
suck.
And by 1 position higher ranked.
Wow.
So they were also in the playoffs, but we were seated ahead of them. So we missed out, even though we bid the same $157.
Wow.
How about that for a weird number to pick? And we tied. So that's not good. I was hoping to get McCormick on the team in case Irving couldn't make the start this week.
Yeah.
Bucky Irving seems to be trending in the right direction. So
I
I'm
hope so.
Hopeful that we get good points out of him. But boy, we're going to need right now in that league. I've got I have Goff over Richardson and Stroud.
Yeah.
Quarterback. I'm trying to get Ertz into the lineup against New Orleans. How does that matchup play?
Let's see. Ertz, and let's see here. Okay, Ertz, let's see, share that. So how does that play? I've got to figure out what Ertz. I like Ertz. I think I've got him in a few that I'm playing in flex. Let's see. New Orleans, where are you at? New Orleans, trying to find them.
Washington, game 4.
Yeah, game 4. Okay, I can find game 4. Cincinnati's game 5. Game 4. New Orleans, of course, is declining. They're always declining. Their efficiency sucks compared to Washington. Washington loves to be at home. New Orleans loves away, so that's not good. Washington tends to pass and rush less away. Daps, Jawan Williams, it's his day. And for Washington, nothing scares me with Ertz.
No.
Nothing. So Washington's a good streaming D this week too. So I would definitely, now that I see that, I'm going to play. I hadn't had time to go through. I just generated this data. I'm going to add the Vegas up here in this little slot, and then I'll publish it out. It just looks like Washington's very dynamic. They can pass, they can rush, their defense can, get it. I think it's going to be. I think if I played anybody, I think the tight end or Kamara. You got to play Kamara, but I don't think he's going to have a spike. But I think he won't hurt you. You'll get your 10 to 14 points. But Jawan Johnson or Foster Moreau might be a surprise in there if I'm doing a
an extreme parlay, I might put a touchdown in for them, just accidentally catch something.
Yeah, and we've got so I'm actually right now to
Yeah,
let you know,
yeah,
I've got Hubbard and Irving in at running back. Had, of course, Cup and Lamb in it at wide receiver.
yeah,
I have Waddle and
yeah.
Ertz in the
I'm
flexes with
not,
Hawkinson as a starter.
yeah. Uh, who's our other choices?
So we've got Higgins and Devonta Smith.
Wow, those could be plays.
Yeah, let's look at the Cincinnati Daps. I'm
Yeah,
curious on that.
game five here. Let's see, game six, game five. Cincinnati, nothing scares me.
No, no. Here's what scared me is that I think Cincinnati might not need to run up the score this week because I don't think Tennessee's going to score shit. So,
You think that, but the DAPS would say all
yeah,
aboard on
yeah,
passing.
yeah. I just don't have any faith in Will Levis or their wide
Yeah.
receivers.
But
So,
again, this is, well,
plus it's going to rain.
Cincinnati is not,
It could rain too.
uh, well, Cincinnati loves to be away, and they are. And they actually pass and rush more in
Interesting.
away games. +8, +5. Tennessee likes to be away. How about that? Even more than
Wow.
Cincinnati. Like they love to be away. They hate home games. So that's
Interesting.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what does that mean? That's a question.
Yeah, and I'm looking at this game and I think Cincinnati will be able to run at will on them. And that's what's got me
Chase
worried.
Brown. So why need Higgins?
Why, Jamar Chase gets his, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
because Burrow will throw, enough to them,
What's the
but
Philly game with Devona Smith? That's 12. Uh 12 here. What is that? That's 6. 12 here. Ooh,
yeah, I don't
yeah.
like the defense.
Ooh. It says Rush. Looks like Barkley.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh
That's kind of how I read that as well. I
yeah.
read that as a low scoring game too.
Yeah, well, the Daps would say yeah, but apparently Philly is a good defense to stream. I guess they collect sacks and whatnot.
Yeah,
Philly's
yeah, they
improving.
yep, 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 yep,
Philly loves home. So does Pittsburgh.
yeah,
And Pittsburgh's away. So Pittsburgh's going to want to rush a little more, pass a little less. Philly loves to rush a little more, pass a little less at home, but nothing dramatic.
yeah.
It just looks like it's a Barkley game here. I'd play him all day long.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, versus
Well,
Ertz. Wow.
yeah, we've got some decisions to make
Yeah.
tomorrow.
So our opponent
And I'm not
having,
sure there could be rain tomorrow for Philadelphia as well, but I don't like the timing right now. I think the timing says the rain comes in after the game's over. So that's kind of how I'm
having a
playing it.
0 with Cup, do we need upside? I have to think we do. That's the thing that worries me about Ertz. I just don't know.
Yeah, and this
I
is
think he's
different.
safe, but I
Yeah.
don't think he's. We almost need a spike. We need a
Yeah.
20 to make up for the Cup.
So so here's the good news is one of the other people that we're playing against who we actually beat last week
Mm-hmm.
was playing Samuel. So he had Debo in the lineup. So
Oh, so
everybody, he got 4.9 is all he got.
okay.
So we're looking at a situation where, remember, we've got to be top two here, of these guys. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, nobody, even though we got off to the 0,
Mm-hmm.
the only other team that had a player in was under 5 as well. So
Yeah.
I look at this and I go, man, we're not in bad shape, but the projections of scores has us lower. So we need the upside. So the other thing I was contemplating is, do you roll the dice and you put Ertz ahead of Hawkinson?
Mm-hmm.
And do you play then Higgins?
Yeah.
I'm gonna wait and see what the weather looks like for Tennessee
Mm-hmm.
before I make that decision. Um, the
Yeah.
other, yeah, then Madison is supposed to be back. Does he supplant Sincere McCormick?
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Mm,
really interesting decisions to make here.
yeah. I'm probably going to be thinking deep this after tonight
Yeah.
while I'm watching baking shows.
Woohoo!
I'm
Yeah,
excited.
well, we're going shopping
Oh
this
boy.
afternoon.
Good
We're finishing
luck.
off our Christmas shopping. So
Yeah.
this is the day where I drive the cart and I say yes to just about anything that gets thrown in it, and then we'll probably grab a bite to eat on the way home, I hope. But
Nice. Well, I'm gonna stop
yeah,
recording. I don't think people need our
no,
shopping
people don't
tips.
need to hear that. But we got a lot of decisions to make for our
Yeah.
team
Yeah. Anyway.
tomorrow, so that'll be
Well, I
interesting.
hope they enjoyed our Squirrel Huskies. I hope so.